Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a newer type of video for us today. If this is your first time watching this channel, my name is Dom. My girlfriend Paige and I are quitting our jobs to travel the world for a full year, and I'm going to share with you how we budgeted our trip. I'm not a financial planner. This is not financial advice. This is just showing our perspective of how we built out our budget to try and travel full time for an entire year. So obviously, when you are traveling full time for a year, some of the things you need to know are your destinations, or at least an idea of where you want to go. So I just want to do a quick overview of what we're looking at. Basically, we have the country that we're going to be visiting, the time of year where we're going to be visiting there, and then we have three main categories for our travel budget. We have flight and transportation, we have a monthly budget, and then we have a housing budget. So obviously, flight and transportation is going to be getting from country to country. Any type of internal country transportation, for example, a train from Tokyo to Osaka, will be included in our monthly budget. So just our flight transportation budget is getting from country to country. And then we have a housing budget, which just helps us keep an idea of how much we should be spending per night in a certain country. Obviously, living expenses, housing expenses vary all over the world. Hawaii, Japan, South Korea is going to be some of the more higher cost of living places that we'll be visiting. That's why you can see our housing budget slightly larger. Same thing with our monthly budget, call it our daily budget. So call it our daily budget. Those are kind of our three main buckets for the spending we'll be doing on our trip. Obviously, you'll see at the end if we needed to budget for our own health insurance while we're away, or specific types of visas to get into each country. Whatever we need to do, we kind of just threw in there. This list on the left side of the screen is very apt to change, but at least gives us an idea of the route we'll be taking, the parts of the world we'll be in at certain times. It's important to have at least that idea down. And then once you kind of have a list or a route, you can kind of start to deduct and pull out some numbers and kind of just Google some things or search some things and kind of see what you're looking for. So, for our year-long trip, we are planning to start in Hawaii, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines as our first four stops. So just for example, to run some numbers, I have an example of our South Korea to Philippines transportation. $300 for a one-way ticket for two people. How do you even come up with that number? And at the end of the day, it really is just as simple as just like search it up, Google it. I used Expedia and Google Flights to do most of the research to come up with this budget solely for transportation. And I'll just go right into it. So for South Korea, we know we're going to be leaving from Seoul and we're going to be wanting to fly into Manila. So obviously going from capital to capital, it's a little bit easier to find the international flight. But all I would really do is type in, I'm leaving from Seoul, South Korea, going to Manila, Philippines at some time, for two travelers, one-way flight going, and from that you could see sometime in October. And my head is in the way, so I'm going to move myself over here. So you can see it's kind of pretty roughly going to be $111 per person for that flight if you want to book kind of towards that end of October when we're going to be planning to fly. So that's kind of just that 111 number is stuck in my head right now. And then I'm going to go over to Google Flights, which is another excellent resource to be able to find some flights. So again, we're looking at mid-October, a little bit pricier in October. Some of the cheaper ones leaning about $160, $161 for a one-way flight from Seoul to Manila. So kind of just running the numbers, I saw 111 on Expedia. I see 160 minimum in Google Flights. To me, it makes sense to just call it a 150 per person per budget. If we take that $111 flight, add on some taxes, add on whatever, I'd try to estimate a little bit higher. Just because you don't want to run out of money. That's the idea, is to try not to run out of money. You're going to want to have a little bit of extra cushion, in my opinion, to just be able to be ready for an emergency or be ready for something to happen. So for me, just looking at all these 111s one way, we can just click on one. And you can see direct flight nonstop 111 per traveler. I'm sure if you click it, kind of as I did in the first few flights, if you click it, they'll add on some fees, tack on some fees. I think $150 or $300 budget from Seoul to Manila for transportation is a good price. So that's where I would come in. Just fill out our little Excel sheet, flight transportation for 2 people, going from South Korea to the Philippines, $300. And then we'll just do one more quick one going from the Philippines to Bangkok. So we'll again be leaving from Manila and then heading to Bangkok after that. So again, capital to capital, the bigger cities make it a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper. So we're going to do the same thing going from checking out Expedia and Google Flights to kind of get that rough estimation. So from Manila to the Philippines, we're going to be looking more towards that November timeline. And on Expedia, you have 159, a couple 104s on the weekends, so a little bit cheaper on the weekends. So in my head right now, it's kind of like similar to what we looked at. And then checking out Google Flights, Manila to Bangkok, same deal. We'll check the end of November, a little bit pricier. So it's kind of that 170 number. And again, with flights, it's really weird depending on whatever's going on with fuel prices or anything like that. It varies a lot daily. So that's why I kind of like to take that almost middle to higher number when I'm making these. And for me, it's kind of worked out. Our starting point we're playing is Philadelphia. So we're flying from Philadelphia to Hawaii, from Hawaii to Tokyo, and then taking a ferry from Fukuoka, Japan to Busan, South Korea as our modes of transportation. We booked those 3 modes of transportation already. I used this strategy to budget out $1,150 for the 3 of them. We ended up spending $1,050. So again, kind of that little bit over budget worked for us. And then obviously any taxes, fees, whatever it is, we have $100 buffer now, which we didn't end up needing to use, but still, it's nice to put yourself a little bit higher just in case of emergency. So just doing some research from the past few days, fuel prices do fluctuate. I'm still pretty comfortable with this $300 number because one of the things when you are traveling without a true plan or anything booked, you can pick and choose what day you leave. You don't need to be set to a specific date. That's why when looking at Expedia from Manila to Bangkok, in November, this $100 flight really sticks its eye out to me. That's where I feel confident kind of being able to leave that $300 for 2 people. In this case, be $208 for 2 people if we were to fly out on the 15th or the 22nd. And again, it does vary daily. That is how we have decided to push our flight and transportation budget. And for, again, only our first 3 real major modes of transportation, it has worked. But again, everyone has their own way to do things. This is how we decided to budget our flight and transportation. Let's get into how we calculated the housing budget. So again, the example I have pulled up is in Japan, in Tokyo. So I also use Expedia for hotel searches, and then also Airbnb seems to be a pretty good way to get a feel for prices, at least. Similar to flights, it does vary day to day. You're not going to really see the same hotel prices every day. You'll see a little bit of line of consistency from both Expedia and Airbnb, but it does fluctuate, and it definitely can. So for a housing budget in Japan, we did it to $1,300, which comes out to roughly $325 a week. So I just know we're going to spend a good amount of time in Tokyo and Osaka when we're in Japan. So I just did this first search for Tokyo. So we're really looking for a week stay in Tokyo, and we're looking to see if $325 a night is realistic. This is just kind of Expedia's hotel search. So you see a lot of them around 400, and there's one in the middle at 292. So some are a little bit cheaper, one at the bottom 329. And then so I just have some filters set. Obviously, the pricing, I think I have maxed out at 50 or $60 per night, maxed out. And then I just have the date of September in as a flexible date, and then roughly a week. So we're kind of just looking. This is just one that caught my eye. Hotel My Stays. It looks like it's going to be $292 for, I believe it was 5 or 6 nights. Yeah, so this is just one random hotel, roughly 6, 7 nights in September. Just scrolling down, looking at some stuff that's popular among their travelers, $44, $46 per night. That's kind of where we want to be in our budget. Makes me feel a little bit better about the numbers we've been putting out. So you could see that, again, it's just one example, and there were some that were more expensive. There were some, only a few that were a little bit cheaper, but to me, this is still kind of that middle of the pack number. And then if you kind of just want to verify it on Airbnb, this is also just a very similar search in that Tokyo area with Airbnb, obviously with very low nightly numbers. Again, we're looking at some for 5 nights right now. So just some basic apartments. We know we're not going to be getting luxury with our budget. That was never the idea to be in luxury. Our accommodation is we're basically just looking for somewhere to sleep and stay safe at night, which is really all we're going to need. We're going to spend most of our time outside of the room, walking around, doing whatever. So we just wanted somewhere that basically somewhere to sleep at night is all we're looking for. Not looking for anywhere to break the budget. But for example, this one looks pretty cool. Obviously, you should do your own research for neighborhoods and things like that. Some of the places we've looked at have been closer to the Shinjuku area, which is just an area that grabbed my eye, an area that I wanted to check out and be close to. But again, all I hear is about how great the public transportation is in Japan, so it seems like it's going to be pretty easy to get around, especially with a place with a 4 minute walk to a station. It looks like a nice little apartment. Just scope this one out specifically. Nice rooms, small, exactly what we're looking for. TV, AC, little mini fridge if we need it. Something like this would probably work for us, and it's charging us $217 for 5 nights, which would fall right into that $40-$45 a night range that we're looking for. So again, it's not a perfect equation, but it's something to just give us that rough idea that this $1,300 budget isn't bad. And you're going to have some money saved here or there if you save some money. If you go over on the flight, your estimation, you go a little bit over on what your housing budget should be, and you go a little bit over on what your monthly budget would be. You're going to have some carryover too, where it's like, I saved a little bit money on my flight and transportation. Maybe I could throw it at the housing. And then lastly, we're going to look at our monthly budget. So for 2 people, this is where it gets into a little bit of that true backpacker budget. For 2 people, I budgeted $85 a day in Japan. So how I calculated this one is just like, I just thought, like, what are your basic necessities that you need? You need food and you need water. That's really all you're going to need after we have our flight and housing budget paid for. So I just did some quick research, and you can kind of just use these little overviews. They're pretty helpful. Most of them seem to be pretty accurate based on like additional research I've been doing. So this is how I'm going to do it. Obviously, again, do your own research in terms of how you would do it. I'm just showing you the way that how we built out our budget. But we know we're not going to be doing any fine dining because we just simply can't afford it. So a lot of our food is either going to be fast foods, beef bowls, ramen, convenience stores, some cheaper stuff. So we're looking to spend probably, $5 each on breakfast, $5 each on lunch, maybe spoil ourselves $10 each on dinner for food of budget of like $40 to $45 a day. And then that's going to leave us kind of that extra $40-$45 to kind of spend on activities or whatever we want to do for the day. So I just put an example of like, I know I want to go to a professional Japanese baseball game. And it looks like tickets range from $14 to $55 for a typical ticket, which, again, we're not blowing out the budget. We're on a backpacker budget. So it's like if we can do a day of walking around the city, have 3 meals, and the day going to a baseball game, sounds like a good day to me. And our budget won't get us much past that, but if we spend $40 on food, $14 per two, or $28 for 2 tickets, call that $70. We got to run for a couple beers or something at the baseball game, so can't be that bad. And then just another activity that I know I wanted to do was go see a sumo match because obviously it's like the coolest thing ever. It's such a cool sport. But same thing. If it's roughly $22 a ticket, budget $25 a ticket, spend $50 on that. That's probably a convenience store breakfast, lunch, and dinner type of day. And again, maybe not the healthiest way to travel, maybe not the best way to put your money out, but this is how we just came up with our numbers. But I know there's a question everybody is waiting for: how much does it cost to travel the world for an entire year? And I'm just showing you our estimations, and then maybe at the end of a trip I'll do a review on how these numbers worked out, which comes out to roughly $50,000 per person. And again, this is just adjusting for cost of living. Like, we know that, call it Western Europe, is going to be more expensive than Southeast Asia. East Asia, obviously, more expensive than Southeast Asia as well, in terms of just cost of living. But the number we came up with is 50,000. So $25,000 each. Again, it's a lot of money. We know it's a lot of money. So the next question is, like, how do you get $25,000 each? Basically, I've been working full time for 3 years out of college. So that $25,000 comes to about $160 per week. Put that to the side weekly for 3 years, which I know may be a lot to some people. It may be nothing to some people. It's just what worked for me. And for when I was saving that $25,000, I was able to put roughly $160 a week aside, dedicate it towards this for 3 years straight. And it might look like you need to be saving for 5 years straight for some people. For other people, it might look like you need to be saving for 1 year straight, and you'll be able to afford something like this. But it's definitely a grind. It's something that it's important to stay consistent with when you're saving too. But yeah, we think it is going to be $50,000 to travel the world for an entire year. So that's what we budgeted. That's what we save to, and that is what we are each contributing to this trip. So stay tuned for when the trip is done, and we can see how it worked out. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but $50,000 is going to be our budget for the trip. So I would like to thank you all for watching. I hope this kind of information was helpful to someone if you're thinking about planning a trip like this or something like that. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye. We'll see you in the next one.